members are here. Some of them are just had to step out for a second. So I'm going to call this meeting to order now. First item of business is, do we have any bill introductions? And maybe I should start with the committee first. Committee, do you have any bill introductions for us? If not, are there any bill introductions in the gallery? Yeah, come on up. Our audience.
Brock Rayler, General Counsel with Office of State Bank Commissioner. I have two bills for introduction, RS 2679, which repeals a antiquated statute, and 2734, which is to establish a foundation. I request that the committee introduce these bills.
Okay. Committee, do you have any questions about those two bill introductions? Do you have any objections? If not, thank you. We'll accept those and forward them to the Senate. Any other bill introductions for committee? Well, before we have our presentation today, an overview, I'd like to introduce my intern. This is Brady Clark. Brady's from a freshman at Kansas State University. Why don't you wave again, Brady? And he is going to be with us today and tomorrow, and then he'll be here one day a week during session because he has to go to class at K-State. So he's a Topeka kid. So welcome, Brady. Happy to have you with us. All right, committee, today you have the agenda in front of you. We're going to have an overview and an update from the Office of the State Bank Commissioner. And Brock, are you going to do the majority of the presentation? Why don't you come forward? And do we have the commissioner on WebEx or not today?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Herndon, you're there?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Welcome. Okay, Brock, go ahead. Introduce yourself, and we're ready.
I always feel awkward reintroducing myself, but I certainly will. My name and position haven't changed the last 5 minutes. I'm Brock Rayler, General Counsel, Office of State Bank Commissioner. So good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. As mentioned, we do have on WebEx the Bank Commissioner, David Herndon. I do also have with me our Director of Examinations on the CML side, Daryl Wetter, who's also going to be available for questions. All right. Which one? Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So the Office of State Bank Commissioner, our agency has 5 budgetary units. We do have a division of banking and trust, which oversees state chartered banks, trust departments, trust companies, and one TEFI. TEFI stands for Technology-Enabled Fiduciary Financial Institutions, and this is unique to Kansas. We are the only state in the United States that has a TEFI charter. This division is led by Deputy Commissioner Tim Kemp. In addition, we have a division of consumer and mortgage lending. This department regulates non-depository institutions such as mortgage businesses, money transmitters, consumer credit companies, debt management companies, and very recently earned wage access service providers, which provide an advancement of wages that are earned but not paid. We also do have 3 other budget units, the Finance and Administration Division, which handles day-to-day operations, budgeting, accounting, travel arrangements, and tracking and HR functions. The department I lead, the Legal Department, represents the agency, the State Banking Board, and Commissioner Herndon in legal and legislative matters. I also oversee a Consumer Affairs Division, which handles consumer complaints against any of our licensed or chartered entities. We also do have an IT department, which is led by Matt Hodges, that manages the agency's internal information technology needs. And unique to our agency, we also conduct IT examinations for regulated businesses. So these are examiners that have an IT background that are making sure that the financial institutions in Kansas are safeguarding Kansas citizens' information. So both the Banking and Trust Division and the CML division are also fully accredited by the Conference of State Bank Supervisors, which is a national organization of banking regulators from all 50 states. So as for our agency, we have 114 authorized FTEs. The OSBC operates as a fee-funded agency, deriving its revenue from bank assessments and CML licensing fees. Our fiscal year 2026 budget request is $14.1 million, which is fully fee funded. Not only are we fee funded, we are actually required to transfer to the state general fund $100,000 from our bank assessment fee and our CML licensing fund. So our agency does not cost the state anything. In fact, we contribute to the state general fund. Additionally, $250,000 each year from the TEPI assessment is deposited with the Kansas Department of Commerce to support SEED program, which is a strategic economic expansion and development. On this slide, we have our OSBC contacts. We do encourage you to reach out to us if you have any questions or need assistance. Our website does contain the latest details on banks, trust companies, the TEFI, and non-depository licensees. So I'm first going to talk about the Banking and Trust Division. The Banking and Trust Division conducts safety and soundness examinations on all of our regulated banks and trust companies every 18 months, or more frequently for larger institutions or those that we have identified as troubled. When we oversee the TEFI, the Kansas TEFI Act does not allow us to perform a safety and soundness exam on this entity. However, we do conduct examinations on all entities under our jurisdiction, including the TEFI, in the following areas, which include compliance, Bank Secrecy Act, Anti-Money Laundering Acts, and information technology. To meet the 18-month examination mandate, we are allowed to alternate examinations with the FDIC and the Federal Reserve Bank. Each state charter bank can choose between the FDIC or Federal Reserve as their other regulator for safety and soundness exams, and that's really up to the bank to choose which one they prefer. For larger or troubled banks, joint examinations are conducted with these federal partners. And as mentioned, we do have more frequent examinations for troubled banks. In 2025, Kansas had 153 state charter banks, 31 with active trust departments, 13 trust companies, and 1 TEFI. Collectively, these entities managed $218.9 billion in assets. Our safety and soundness examinations adhere to international industry standards. We assign ratings under the CAMELS ratings, which stands for capital adequacy, asset quality, management, sufficient earnings, liquidity, and sensitivity to market risk. These are rated on a 1 to 5 scale, with 1 being the best. Then, in addition to a rating on each one of those ratings, we also assign an overall rating 1 to 5. If an examination reveals unsafe, unsound, or non-compliant practices, this entity is classified as troubled or a problem institution. Enforcement actions do depend on the severity of findings. As I mentioned earlier, we do not conduct safety and soundness examinations on TEFIs. This isn't by choice, it's because the Kansas TEFI Act prohibits us from doing so. The Act also imposes 2 additional restrictions. First, it specifically disallows us from reviewing and providing an assessment on earnings. And the second directive is the Kansas TEFI Act mandates that any goodwill asset be included when reporting capital. These statutory directives represent a significant departure from the standards we apply to other entities. They deviate from the UFIRS, the Uniform Financial Institutions Rating System, that's the CAMELS rating I mentioned earlier, and the Uniform Interagency Trust Rating System, and even generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. In practice, this means that oversight is weaker and less comprehensive than the oversight required for other financial institutions. So next, I want to talk about the state chartered banks and the ratings. State banks in Kansas right now are very strong. As of 2025, only 3 of the 153 Kansas state chartered banks were rated a 3, 4, or 5, which is considered a troubled bank. This percentage has been consistent in the past 5 years, underscoring the stability of banking industry in Kansas. But as you can see, it's a little bit lower than in previous years. On this slide, I have the bar graph of Kansas chartered banks. This graph highlights the number of banks and total bank assessments in Kansas over the past 6 years. The blue line, which represents the number of state chartered banks, shows a steady decline. Since 2020, the number of state charter banks has decreased by about 16%. The bar chart also shows an overall increase in bank assets. However, we saw a decline in assets in 2025 due to Kansas's largest state chartered bank being acquired by an out-of-state bank. This bank was Cross First Bank, and it had assets of about $8 billion. But even with that, Kansas saw an increase in assets since 2020 by about 5%. The combination of fewer banks and growing total assets is not unique to Kansas. On this slide, it shows the bar graph of all banks in the United States. Nationally, we observed a similar pattern throughout the United States. The number of banks across the country has declined by 12%. From 2020 to 2025, nationwide, bank assets grew by 30% in the same period. On this slide, I have the largest and the smallest banks in Kansas. Kansas is one of 12 states without a bank that exceeds $10 billion in assets. As you can see, Equity Bank is the bank closest to reaching the $10 billion threshold. The smallest Kansas banks, shown at the bottom chart, while modest in size, are often the sole financial institutions in their community, playing an essential role in local economies. On this slide, it discusses the asset mix of Kansas banks. Kansas banks do maintain diverse assets. About a quarter of our bank assets are invested in securities, which is shown in red, which include municipal securities issued by local governments that support critical infrastructure projects. In other words, our banks are oftentimes interwoven with the communities by providing bonds for the community school districts, city governments, and/or county governments. On this slide, it shows the trust companies and trust departments in Kansas. We have 13 trust companies and 31 bank trust departments that manage over $161 billion in client assets. In 2024, Midwest Institutional Trust Company in Overland Park assumed custodial trust assets that almost doubled overall trust assets in the state. On this slide, we visually show the growth of trust assets in Kansas, as well as our most recent valuation of the TEFI. The OSBC expects trust assets held in Kansas to continue to grow. On this slide, I'm discussing the Information Technology Department, and it fulfills two primary roles. First, like any agency's IT team, it handles a wide range of essential tasks. This include infrastructure and hardware installation, system and software administration, cybersecurity, help desk support, and data management. Second, and more uniquely, as mentioned, our IT examinations evaluates the IT operations of entities under our oversight and conducts specialized cybersecurity risk assessments of our entities. When our IT examination team evaluates regulated companies to ensure its policies, procedures, and practices safeguard both institutional and consumer data, our IT exam focus on IT management and oversight, business continuity and disaster preparedness, incident response, IT support capabilities, cybersecurity controls, and risk management. Our IT exams are usually conducted concurrently with the safety and soundness compliance exams, but by different staff. This reduces the burdensome aspect of having multiple exams. IT examinations follow guidelines established by 4 federal acts and codes, along with several regulatory initiatives. However, keeping up with these guidelines in the threat environment is challenging, especially as cybersecurity becomes increasingly complex. Our agency has consistently prioritized significant investments in IT infrastructure and cybersecurity to ensure robust protection and resilience. And now at this point, I'm going to switch to talking about the Consumer and Mortgage Lending Division. The role of the CML division has 2 main responsibilities. First, it licenses non-depository entities that conduct mortgage business, money transmission, extensions of consumer credit, earned wage access, or provide debt management services. Second, it examines those licensed entities to ensure they comply with both state and federal law. In total, this department oversees around 13,700 licensed companies and professionals. Like the Banking and Trust Division, the CML division is entirely self-funded through fees collected from the entities it regulates. Most of our examinations are Kansas-only CML examinations. In these cases, our job is straightforward. We make sure the company is following the rules that apply here in Kansas, along with relevant federal requirements. But when a company operates in multiple states, we do try to be efficient in our examinations with other states. When feasible, we coordinate a networked multi-state examination so the company isn't answering the same question over and over to different states and regulators. The goal is simple: strong oversight, less duplication, and more efficient use of everyone's time. Kansas is recognized as a leader in multi-state examinations. In fact, one of our examiners, Kaler, was awarded as CSBS Examiner in Charge of the Year, due in part to the number of multi-state examinations he conducted. On this slide, I'm going to discuss our CML licensing activity, and this will help show you the trend as to what we're seeing in the CML licensing area. We did see an uptick in consumer and mortgage licensing activity in 2025 after several years of decline. Specifically, mortgage loan originators and earned wage access service providers are up. The earned wage access service providers is up due to the recent statutory change. We believe a big part of this is likely traces back to the COVID-era period of very low interest rates when many providers entered the market or expanded. Then as rates rose in 23 and 24, loan volume tightened and competition increased, and a number of providers scaled back or exited. What we think we're seeing in 2025 is a steadier, more measured return to the market and a broader pickup in CML licensing activity overall. As mentioned, the Earned Wage Access Act is our newest act, which was passed in the 2024 legislative session on House Bill 2560. This bill authorized earned wage access in Kansas and assigned oversight to the Office of State Bank Commissioner. As of December of 2025, Kansas had 26 registered EWA providers with 6 additional applications under review. Participation has been significantly higher than we anticipated, and with each provider requires ongoing oversight for licensing examinations and, when necessary, enforcement. To avoid delays and maintain timely supervision, we have requested that 2 FTE positions dedicated to EWA oversight as an enhancement to our base budget requirements. And again, the costs of the additional FTEs would be covered through licensing fees from the Earned Wage Access Service providers. In fact, the Consumer and Mortgage Lending Division has anticipated this need, and the funding is already available. On this slide, I wanted to discuss our consumer education initiatives. The CML division supports consumer education through grants funded by assessed fines and penalties. Since 1999, over $6 million in grants have been distributed. And specifically for calendar year 2025, we awarded $241,550 to 7 organizations. Also, the OSBC sponsors a Kansas Financial Scholars Essay Scholarship for Kansas seniors. In fiscal year 2025 was the 11th year that we have offered the essay scholarship, and a total of $25,000 was awarded last year to 5 students continuing their education in Kansas. On this slide, we are discussing the organizations that received grant funds last year. Historically, our outreach affected about 25,000 Kansans per year. In the last couple of years, that number substantially increased. In fiscal year 2025, when you look at the subtotal line, we directly impacted 33,835 individuals through educational programs. Plus, the last 2 programs in this chart represent mass media projects that we co-sponsored. We estimate that these media campaigns received about 1.1 million in impressions. Also new this year, I wanted to bring your attention to 2 new recipients in the 25-26 fiscal year. First, we have awarded a grant to the Kansas State University Foundation, which is being used to fund the Kansas High School's Teachers Personal Finance Professional Development Program. This program teaches the teachers at each of the 406 Kansas high schools Kansas high schools now require personal finance class as a graduation requirement, and this program is designed to help each school offer a program that meets this mandate. It is unknown if this particular grant will be a one-off grant or if it's a continuing program that will be offered by Kansas State. Second, we are also funding a new entity called Sparkwheel. Sparkwheel puts in an event that stimulates the real world and shows students that their decisions can have a lasting impact on their personal finances. For instance, a student may discover that buying a convertible has a trade-off on their budget, and they might not be able to purchase as nice of a house. This program is very similar to a program that put on one of our consistent recipients, the Pando Initiative, which consistently has the highest number of served Kansans per grant dollar awarded. We are hopeful that Sparkwheel will be able to reach a similar efficiency. Finally, Madam Chair and members of the committee, I'd like to provide a high-level overview of certain legislative bills we anticipate introducing during the 2026 legislative session. First, our biggest bill this year will be the Virtual Currency Kiosk Consumer Protection Act. We are planning on first introducing this in the House. If enacted, it would regulate cryptocurrency kiosks located at convenience stores, grocery stores, and other similar establishments as a money transmitter. Second, our agency wishes to establish a charitable foundation with the sole purpose of using funds to support consumer financial education initiatives. That is one of the RS numbers I request an introduction for today. Third, we are going to propose an amendment to the probate code to strengthen accountability for, we'll propose an amendment to the probate code that will require conservatees to provide financial institutions of any orders. This is due to a consumer complaint that we received earlier this year. Finally, we will propose amendment to the Financial Institutions Information Security Act. That is one of the bills that our IT examiners enforce to add earned wage access service providers to the entities already subject to the Act. And Madam Chair and members of the committee, as you move forward in this session, we respectfully request your support for these legislative sessions. And thank you. I'm certainly available for any questions.
Thank you. Committee, do you have any questions of Brock? And before we ask him a question, I know you have to leave early. I do. Do you want to ask a question?
I'll catch you another time, Brock. I had a couple
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Did the commissioner wish to say anything, Commissioner Herndon, before we ask questions, or not?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for allowing me to appear remotely this morning. I think General Counsel Raylor handled the presentation quite well and addressed all of the issues that were before, so I don't have anything to add at this point.
Okay. You broke up just a little bit, but I think we're good. Senator Warren?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation today. I think you mentioned a piece about consumer education, consumer financial education. Was that a bill or a grant, or you were starting a foundation, or?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the committee. One of our bills this year is we are going to request to establish a foundation. Really what we're trying to do is we are noticing a huge uptick in requests in our consumer education. So what we want to do is we want to be able to invest those funds, the idle funds. We received over a $1 million fine on a multi-state agreement. And right now, from our perspective, it's sitting in a bank account, not earning any interest. So this is kind of an idea that we have so we can invest the idle funds. But the foundation that we would be establishing can only be used for consumer education. We put a lot of restrictions in there because we want the legislature to know what we're doing. We are not trying to come up with additional funding for our employees. We're not trying to be a political action committee, nothing like that.
Sure, we'll appreciate the effort, and to me it kind of dovetails from what we heard from the credit unions yesterday, that in a couple of high schools in the state, they have a credit union that the students operate with supervision, of course, and I was wondering with maybe the foundation that's being asked for in the legislation, whether there could be a bank set up in some of the high schools. I know I've got a high schooler myself, and you know the population there would be, I would think, could benefit greatly as new consumers, about to go out into the world, and, they've got to figure out finances as well. So just wondering if that's something that the foundation would be looking at if it's established.
Chairman Dietrich and members of the committee, we actually already have a statute that allows that.
Okay, so great. So do we have banks then operating in some high schools?
I can answer that.
Okay, there we go. Thank you for that
Keep
update,
off the
too.
hook here. In Shawnee County, we have several high schools that have banks, and so they have a relationship with a local bank, and they supervise the students, and they're usually through their FBLA program or their DECA program and their business department. So the oldest bank in Kansas, student-run, is in Seaman High School, so, and almost 100 years.
Excellent.
So, again, so we do have banks, and honestly, I don't know if there would be a request for funding from the foundation. Most of the time, if we approve that, most of the times, the equipment is provided by the local bank. And they train the students, and then a teacher in the business department supervises, but they have a bank president, vice president, and they're open at various times, depending upon when they're available to staff the bank, so.
Well,
yes.
this is great for me to know. I am a DECA parent and a
Yeah,
BPA parent, and we have a parent meeting next Thursday with our teacher, and I'm going to suggest this. And obviously, I'm also on the PTO, and I know we have a local bank that is very involved with our school, so I'm going to maybe talk about next steps to bring the education piece on the finances, maybe open a banking facility in the school. So
There are many models across the state.
I'm glad to hear that. So thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Any other Senator Hill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brock, thank you for your presentation, informative. I wanted to circle back to the examination, the joint examinations a little bit, where you're doing a joint examination with the federal inspector. Help me a little bit on that. Is that just redundancy, or are you looking at different things, or what's the point of having two separate agencies at a bank at the same time?
Chairman Dietrich and members of the committee, well, as I mentioned, we need to have an examination every 18 months for a normal bank. So what we'll do is we'll alternate. So we will go in the first time, and then 18 months later, our federal counterpart will. So at least federal and state are looking at safety and soundness examinations once every 18 months. And quite honestly, it helps to have a second set of eyes. So if for some reason the federal agency misses something and we go in the next examination, maybe we catch it.
So it isn't necessarily, it's not like you have two agencies at the same time there. You're alternating between them. Is that more?
Well, I do need to change my answer slightly on that. For troubled institutions, it's more likely that we'll have a joint exam, simply because that's something that we think both agencies need to be involved. And every now and again, we may join a federal agency, but typically it's either our examination or the federal counterparts.
Thank you very much.
Questions? I do have a couple. I know what I think Senator Fagg was going to ask you, the question he asks every year. It's about troubled institutions. So you have two, it looks like, that is.
We have 2 as 3 rated, but we have 1 as a 5
One is a
rated.
5. That's it. The one that's a 5, is that a bank that's been rated at that level for more than one examination cycle?
The 5 rated bank, or in total?
Total, yes.
We do have some that have been multi-year. I believe that one of the 3 is new.
Okay. And do we have any, that kind of just leads to the question of, do we have any banks that you believe are in danger of not being accredited? Chartered?
The 5 rated bank is a very serious concern for us. We do not rate a 5 lightly, and that is one that we are having conversations with on a daily basis. As of right now, it is not in danger of failing, but we are looking at it very closely.
And if I might, one more question. When you were talking about trust companies and trust departments, you said that Midwest Institutional Trust doubled their assets. They assumed whom did they assume? Did they assume another trust company?
No, that, they actually acquired assets from BMO Bank. They decided they wanted to exit certain industries, and Midwest Institutional Trust was able to take on those assets.
May I follow that up with, is that an in-state, a national, an international,
BMO is a national bank.
national?
Actually, they're also affiliated with Bank of Montreal, so I believe it's still domestically based, but they are associated with the Canadian bank.
Okay, very good. Committee, any other questions? Well, thank you for being here. Great presentation. We always learn something. And of course, we'll be introducing those bills, and we'll see where that goes. Okay, committee, any other questions for me or anything else we need to cover before I adjourn this meeting? I will let you know that we will meet tomorrow, Thursday, and we have presentations. I'm looking at my list. Oh, yes, insurance commissioners tomorrow. I didn't know if we had changed that. The insurance commissioner will be here tomorrow to do the update that we normally get. So thank you so much. Meeting adjourned. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee.